Hello and welcome to the Warframe tier list. Today we will be going over Caliban. First things first, let's jump into the build. Alright, so Caliban's build is very similar to Zaku's in the sense that you want to reach 200% strength with high range and okay duration. The main difference between Caliban and Zaku is Caliban needs a bit of extra sustain as you are casting abilities significantly more often. So how we are getting our sustain on Caliban is either by subsuming Dispensary over his 1, or by running Breach Surge or your subsume of choice here and running Equilibrium. I prefer Breach Surge as it is an AoE CC and is also amplifying our damage. Another reason I prefer Breach Surge over Dispensary is we are using a Shield Gate build. The reason I am running a Shield Gate build on Caliban instead of a Shield Tank build because of his 3 giving shields per second is because he has no form of damage mitigation in his kit anywhere. You may be thinking his passive gives you 50% damage reduction. The problem with this is it only works against one damage type and it's only 50%. And not only that, but it doesn't actually stack with adaptation. And even if it did, 50% damage mitigation is not enough to scale into Steel Path. So that is why we are opting for a Shield Gate build. And using Dispensary as your Shield Gate ability is kind of annoying. And you can't really use your 2 as a Shield Gate ability because you are not allowed to spam it. There is like an innate cooldown before you can recast it. I think it has to do with the 2 has to hit X amount of enemies before you can recast it, something along those lines. I don't know what, but that means that you'll often be spamming your Dispensary to Shield Gate, which is just annoying as it doesn't do anything, whereas pressing Breach Surge multiple times at least does something. We are getting the last 100% ability strength from Molt Augmented, giving us 60% strength after 250 kills, and our focus school of choice, Madurai. Madurai is extremely important on Caliban for 2 reasons. A, the 40% ability strength after Void Slinging twice in a row, and the 50% casting speed. This 50% casting speed is imperative on Caliban. Now for the rest of the build, I was using the Vermisplicer. The primary is your AoE weapon of choice, however I found the Vermisplicer to work best on Caliban. This is the Vermisplicer build I use. If you don't have a Riven, you just want something here with fire rate, preferably Vile Acceleration, but I would highly suggest a Riven as the Riven dispo is high and the Rivens are cheap. Not only that, but you can see that this Riven is giving me 90% fire rate and 140% multi-shot, whereas Vile Acceleration would only give you 90% fire rate. As for the secondary, you want a primer here. In the missions, I was running the Loadout, and I was using it to kill the Acolytes, but I later realized that with Caliban's 2, making the Acolytes take 70% additional damage, and his 4, armor stripping the Acolytes, the Glaive was more than enough to just kill the Acolytes in just 2 throws by itself. So you do not need a secondary like the Loadout to kill the Acolytes for you, you can just use the Glaive. So I would suggest using a primer like the Epitaph as your secondary, and since you're already applying Viral with your primary, you do not need to slot Viral on your primer. So I would suggest Radiation for the CC that it provides to help your survivability, and Toxin just for an extra element to boost your damage. And then finally, we are using a Panzer with the synth mods equipped, and the synth mods are very important to proc your Equilibrium on the Breach Surge build. Now moving on to the rankings, we will be discussing Caliban in relation to 4 topics. Firstly, his KPM, secondly, his survivability, thirdly, his viability in the different game modes, and finally, how fun he is to play. All of this data is sampled from a 1-hour solo Steel Path MOT run with no specters and no on-call. So moving on to the first topic, his KPM. Caliban, like Zaku, has a lingering full armor strip, so his guns will always be able to kill regardless of what levels the enemies are. Unlike Zaku, he has a further buff with his 2, applying a debuff to enemies, making it so you can kill the super tanky Xmas and Acolytes even quicker, and Caliban's 4 works on Acolytes. The problem with Caliban's KPM is he has to cast abilities significantly more often than Zaku, and he doesn't have an ability that's assisting with his KPM. So it's entirely your guns, and you're just spamming abilities to stay alive and to reapply the debuffs. With all of that, his KPM drops significantly compared to Zaku. The reason I'm comparing Zaku and Caliban a lot is because they are extremely similar in what they do and what they want to do. They both apply a lingering armor strip, and they just want to lock down an area. The problem is Caliban just does it strictly worse, and furthermore, his 3, which you want to keep up, you want to keep the sentience up because they divert enemy attention, increasing your survivability, and they also give you shield per second, which means that if you utilize that correctly with rolling guard, you can actually get away with not having to shield gate every now and then. You can just get your passive shield to start going, and then the sentience will restore your shield up to full. But the problem with that is, while them diverting enemy attention away is a good thing for your survivability, it is a bad thing for your KPM. What will end up happening a lot is the sentience, I think they're the Conchalists, will consistently wander 50 meters away into Bufu, Egypt, and just there'll be 20 enemies there sitting there shooting them, nowhere near you, and it will just lower your KPM because the enemies aren't running to you. The other problem is the sentients have unit collisions, so they can block you to mess up your movement, and they can block your shots, which is very annoying. All of this leads Caliban to just having significantly worse KPM than Zaku, which is why, although it scales up to level cap, which is why I can't give it anything higher than a flat A. Now on to the second topic, his survivability. And again, his survivability is a little clunky because of some of the aforementioned reasons. So the sentients that you summon are good in the sense that they divert enemy attention away from you, but they're also bad in the sense that they have unit collision. They can block you, which can lead to getting you killed, and they can block your shots, which again can very easily lead you to getting killed. And not only that, his passive, which gives you the pseudo adaptation, can also sometimes kill you when shield gating. You might be asking how? This only happened like 2 times, but it does happen. So with his sentience giving you a bunch of shield, you will occasionally get up to like 1k overshield, even when using a shield gate build, and you'll have the 50% adaptation stacks, and you'll get shot, and what will happen is it will only leave you at like 30 or 40 shield. It won't fully break your shield, and then you'll get shot again and it'll break your shield, and then you won't have a shield gate because you weren't full shield whenever your shield got broken, and then you'll just instantly die. This doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And on top of that, his sustain is very iffy, which again can lead to dying. If you run out of energy, you're gonna die. So with his clunkiness, the body blocks, and the sentience blocking your shots, which by the way, if they add self-damage back, or if you're using an explosive launcher and you don't have prime sure-footed, is basically a death sentence if the sentience ever block your shot. And because of all these reasons, I cannot, in good faith, give his survivability anything higher than a B. And even that, I think, is being generous. And now we are going on to the third topic, which is his viability in the different game modes. This is fairly short. Across the board, he's just a worse Zaku, except for in Disruption. In Disruption, Caliban has one thing going for him that is really nice. The fact that he can just freely press his 4 and armor strip a room is really good for Disruption. Unlike Zaku, who needs an enemy nearby to do that, Caliban can just do it at will. This makes armor stripping the demos for you or your teammates extremely easy. If your teammate is at a demo and you're one room away, you can just shoot your 4 at the wall, and it will armor strip the demo most of the time. He is really good for Disruption for being a support frame there. But in every other game mode, he's just put simply a worse Zaku, which means for his overall viability, I have to give it about a B+. Now moving on to the final topic of how fun is Caliban to play. So, as I was just talking about, his Conquilists are extremely annoying. At best, they body block you and it's just annoying. At worst, they body block you and you die because of it. That's just one problem, and then we can move on to the second one. At best, you have Prime Sure-Footed, and you shoot the Conquilist, and nothing happens, but you don't kill the enemies you were trying to kill, so they break your shield, and you have to waste energy shield gating, and then you have to reload and shoot the enemy again. Or, at worst, you don't have Prime Sure-Footed, and you try to either use your AoE weapon if you're using a launcher, or you try to prime them with an Epitaph, you get knocked down, and then you die, because your Conquilist just decided to block your shot, walk in front of you, and block your bullet. This is not fun gameplay, and that's just for that ability. And now we can talk about his 4. His 4 visuals are so bad, you cannot see the ring of what is affected by your armor strip, so you just have to guess. It's hard to get a good feel for what will and won't be affected, and you have no visual feedback to learn from. You just have to like get used to it. And on top of that, the range on the 4 is just not high enough. So ideally you would replace Augur Secrets with Augur Reach, but you would need Archon Shards to do that, so I'm not judging him based on that. And even then, that's still like barely just enough range. What ends up happening a lot is you'll place your 4 and then you'll go and start killing enemies, and you'll find that there's just enemies all perfectly just outside of the ring not getting armor stripped, and it's just annoying. His 2 is fun though. His 2 in conjunction with Breach Surge is very fun. But the problem is his 3 and 4 are just so anti-fun that I can't see myself giving his fun anything higher than a C-, which is what I'm giving it. Because it's just annoying and it can legitimately get you killed. It's just frustrating. In conclusion, Caliban is a B-tier Warframe who you would be happy to see in your squad, but you would not be so happy to play yourself.